Welcome to the Narrative Inc. Podcast, Episode 1.
Today's topic is how to write every day.
Yeah. So when it comes to prepping for NaNoWriMo and also just building habits as an author in general, it can be really difficult. And Sam, what would you say is the most difficult part for you when it comes to actually like the process of sitting down and writing?
Well, I'm a really busy person. Like my entire life, I've always been go, 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 go. So my hardest thing has always been doing all of that and still trying to find time and motivation to sit down and still write. Because I want to write, but you know, when you're at classes all morning and you go hang out with friends, and then you go to work, and then you come home, all you want to do is eat some food and maybe watch some YouTube and go to sleep before you just do it all again. So how do I fit writing into that day?
Yeah, so I think all artists, no matter if they're video creators, writers, just artists in general, struggles with this thing. It can be really hard finding that time and finding that motivation. But I do actually have some really awesome steps that I think will be really helpful for you and just for everybody in general of how they can do that. So my number one thing that I kind of made myself, but I found some other authors do this, is just trick yourself into saying, I'm just gonna sit down and write 10 words. So instead of being like, oh, I have to write this chapter or I have to write 1,600 words or whatever, just say, when I sit down, all I have to do is write 10 words. And then the actual act of sitting down is done. You're actually doing it, and that way you'll be able to continue going on. And you realize that when you have gone on and you're going like, oh, actually, I like this. I do enjoy writing, but the act of sitting down is really hard.
Wow. Thinking about that, my mind is just blown. Because I definitely have the kind of personality where it's really hard to take that first step when, you know, other things are going on. But, you know, as soon as I get my toe in the door, I can usually gather momentum. Holy cow, that's a great idea.
I've been doing this for a little while. I've come up with some pretty good stuff. But, I mean, and it could be like, I'm going to sit down and write 5 words, or I'm going to sit down and write a sentence. It also goes to essentially this thing called no 0 days, where no matter what, as long as you at least write a sentence and at least work on your stuff that day, you are heading towards a goal. Like we said before, NaNoWriMo is all about just building good writing habits and writing every day. So even if you don't have the ability or the motivation or whatever to write that day, just doing one thing to work on your project is the most important part. But yeah, for me, and I think a lot of artists and creators, just sitting down and doing it, even if it's the thing that we love, is really hard. So just being like, okay, all I have to do is this one simple thing. And then you've already gotten past the hardest barrier.
Yeah, I really like that. That's already going to reshape how everything works for me. I think that alone is going to be able to get me that steam rolling as long as I can keep myself on that with that little. That's awesome.
Thanks. And that's actually something I developed on my own. And then when I met with some other writers and some bigger things in a program I'm a part of, I learned that other people do this, but it's not as common as you think. And I don't think it's writing advice that you really think of. So the next part is obviously when you sit down to write, that's awesome. But how do you stay motivated when you are actually writing? That's when the next step comes in, and that's called writing sprints. Have you heard of these before?
I have not.
Okay, so writing sprints are essentially where you set a timer. Really, it can be any time that you want, but I would suggest between 15 to 25 minutes. And in that time, you write as much as possible, and then you take, once that timer goes off, you do a 5 to 10 minute break. That way, you're getting a ton of work in. Even if you're just getting 1 to 500 words, you're getting a ton of work in. And then you take a break, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes. Make sure the break isn't too long, otherwise you'll just lose all steam. But then once that break is over, go right back into it. And if you do writing sprints over time instead of just sitting down again to write that 1,600 words all at once, I think it would be really helpful to just be like, okay, I'm being productive, okay, yeah, I get a break, okay, I'm productive. And 15 to 30 minutes isn't that bad when you're like, okay, I've gotten my writing done for the day, or okay, now I can take a break.
Okay. I like that structure. I'm a very structured, checklisty person. That's how I work on painting when I paint my miniatures. Is I just set the timer and then I just paint and then stop because gotta have a structure to it. But that's something I could pick up pretty easily, I think.
Yeah. I think with these two things, like just starting out, if I would have known about these, it would have completely changed the way that I wrote books from the very beginning. Because I used to think it was just, oh, I'm motivated today, I'm good to go, I sit down and I write. But the next day, I'm not really feeling it. Like I'm not motivated to write. And I know a lot of authors who are like that, or people who want to write that are like that. But if you do give yourself a structure and like these rules or things that you have to follow, it can be really much more productive in your writing itself.
All right. I'm assuming there's a third tip as well.
Oh, there's actually 6 tips.
6 tips. Oh,
Yeah.
this is going to be a meaty episode.
We should have mentioned that earlier on, but there are 6 tips. So those are the first 2. The next one is called ride the high. So there's a lot of days where you won't feel motivated to write. But there's other days where you are going to have so much motivation and you're going to be in the moment, writing the scene. It's going to feel so good, the climax, whatever it may be, it's going to feel awesome. You're just going to be in that moment. And when you're in that, don't stop writing. I know I just said like take breaks, but like if you are feeling that, it can be hard. It's also called a flow state. When you're in that flow state, keep going. Even if you hit your word goal, keep going because then you'll get ahead for the next day. Whether it is NaNoWriMo or if it is just your daily writing outside of this, when you are feeling that flow state, when you're feeling that high, keep going because it will help propel you on and surpass your goals.
Okay, so let myself just really get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And of course, like all these tips are tools. Yeah. They're things that can work for some people and can't work for others. Maybe you'll find that one of these works for you. Maybe you'll find that it doesn't. But really the most important part is just taking them and trying them out. Every author is different. Every artist is different. But these are things that I've found generally help newer writers.
I think that's a very important thing just for life in general as well is, what works for someone isn't going to work for everyone else, but there are general things that, you can also take these tips and probably adapt them to how it works with you. Like figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then change it and keep what does work. But yeah. I don't know, that's what I'm going to be doing already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that flow state's really important. But sometimes, and this is the next tip, is you need to stop when you're in that flow state because you need to keep motivation for the next day. I know some of these tips are contradictory, but that's because, like I just said, they work for different people in different ways.
Okay, I'm glad that that's a caveat in there because I was gonna bring that up. Yeah. I'm like, but didn't you just say we should just keep going?
Trust me, I've thought about this a lot. I've had many discussions about this. So sometimes, like when you hit this pivotal scene and you get super excited about it, you should stop because that'll give you, when you go into your next day of writing, your next writing session, you'll be so much more motivated. Like, I know exactly what I'm going to write and I'm going to hit my goal today no matter what. Even if you're really tired, whatever it may be, you sit down and you're like, I remember the feeling of being in this moment. I am here, I'm going to write.
Leaving yourself on a cliffhanger, a self-made cliffhanger.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. We've all experienced that in our favorite shows where, they'll release the episode one week and the end of the episode, massive cliffhanger, and then you're hooked and you're just itching to watch the next one every moment until you can.
Yep. So, like I said, I know those tips can seem a little contradictory, but it just depends on the day, your mood, whatever it may be. But leaving yourself on a cliffhanger can be really helpful for your productivity because then you're just thinking about that. And throughout the next day or whenever your next writing session is, you'll be like, okay, wait, I can add this thing, and you'll write notes, and you're essentially plotting out and outlining your next set of scenes. And that can just help your productivity outside of your writing. And I think that's really helpful.
I'm really starting to see how this is a toolbox of tips and tricks rather than just, hey, do this and you're going to succeed. It's a lot on yourself to actually, put them into function. Because, leave yourself on a cliffhanger. You got to know when to prime yourself for the next one. This isn't just, hey, follow the checklist. This is learn your tools and use them well.
Yeah, and that's actually a bonus tip that I didn't plan on, but is one I'll probably talk about in every single episode we do, and I talk about a lot in my just regular videos, consistency. You need to be consistent with your stuff to keep up that motivation. And it actually leads right into my next tip, which is remember the spark. So before we started recording this episode, you were telling me about this story, about what you're going to write in November.
Yes.
And you need to take that little piece and just hold on to it. Because there are going to be days where you will not want to write or where you won't write, where you're going to fail. It's going to happen. You're going to fail. I'm just letting you know now. And
that's comforting.
But that's okay. You're allowed to let yourself fail because writing is a skill that you can build. Anybody can be a writer. And so what you need to do is just remember that spark of what got your story going and hold on to that. And so, why did you want to write this? Is this just for you? Are you going to publish it? Because you don't have to publish your story. It could be just for you to just accomplish something.
All right. That's something I'm used to doing for D&D prep
Yep.
and everything. That's how you keep, a campaign on roughly the same track as you started it. We all know that can't happen, but spark. Yeah, I can hold on to a spark.
Yeah, and this just write that down right at the beginning of your story or just wherever you find that you will remember this. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. Just remember that one point of why you started the story. It could be a scene. It could be a magic system. It could be just a character. But just remember why you started this in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
I may not sound confident, but I'm always confident, if not cocky.
It's true. It's true. If you don't know him outside of this, it's very true. Okay, this leads into the last tip that we're going to talk about today. Skip to the good part. Let's say you're struggling to write that day, or you just don't know what to write next. That's okay. Skip wherever you're at and go to the next part. You have permission to do this. You don't have to write everything in a linear order. You can skip to things. George R. R. Martin, which has some very differing opinions within the writer community, but when he had to write The Red Wedding, which if you know what that is, I won't spoil it for you, but when he had to write The Red Wedding, which was a very tragic part of his stories, he skipped it and just moved on because he just didn't want to. He didn't want to write it yet. And so when you are struggling with writing something or you just okay, I don't know how to write this scene, just skip it and go to the next one or to whatever scene you want to write. And that will give you context for the stuff beforehand.
I really like that. I live by a motto of set tomorrow's self up for success. And I can see that, if there's a part that I don't feel or I don't know how to do it and I don't want to do it, then obviously if I force myself to do it, it's not going to be good. And so if I want to succeed, I get that. I should just set it on the shelf and be like, hey, tomorrow Sam is going to write this because he's going to be in a much better headspace than today's Sam.
And because you weren't planning on doing NaNoWriMo until last week, this will help you for when you're okay, I don't actually know how to write this scene in this tavern, or this part of the world isn't fleshed out as well as I'd like it to be. You can just skip it and go to the next thing.
Okay. Those, already just sitting here and listening to this, I came into this episode blind. That's probably how most of these are going to go. But I feel ready to start. I said last week I was itching to just get going and get writing, and now I'm antsy. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
Which tip was your favorite? Or did you find the most useful?
The 10 words, write 10 words a day, because my biggest thing, I can get that excitement going, but I just need to sit down. So setting that small limit. These are fantastic tips. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is our episode for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you like these tips. Comment what your favorite tip was, and we would love to have a discussion about it.
You can find us on Instagram at Narrative Inc., as well as we have a TikTok, and any contact information like email and stuff is on the YouTube channel's page. Keep on the lookout for our next episode. It'll hit you next week.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.